What's up, guys? I'm Brad Rowson.
I'm Bailey Williamson.
This is the Double B broadcast, and today we're going to be looking at conspiracy theories everybody knows, from Bigfoot to the Loch Ness Monster. In
this week's episode, Bigfoots.
Today I'm going to be talking about the origin of the Bigfoot a little bit to start us off. Stories of the wild men existed among the Native Americans of the Pacific Northwest long before colonists moved in. Stories of a giant hairy creature that appears half man and half ape. Bigfoot is described by believers as being between 6 and 8 foot tall, with a large forehead, a pronounced brow. He is covered in brown hair and has enormous feet, which he's most known for. It wasn't until 1958 that Bigfoot legend really kicked off in the United States. That year, a man named Gerald Crew found a set of large footprints at a construction site where he worked in California. He had his friend make a plaster cast of the prints. The story gained a lot of attention after being published in the Humboldt Times and was picked up by the Associated Press, drawing international attention. Turns out, the front prints were a hoax. Surprise, surprise. After the death of a man named Ray Wallace, the brother of the man in charge of the construction site where the prints were found, his family stepped forward to say that he was responsible for faking the prints. Scoop Bill, the editor for Humboldt Times, is also said to be involved. Nevertheless, the 1958 prints find brought the first Bigfoot hunters to the area. The most common explanation for Bigfoot sightings is that people are playing pranks. There was even once a thriving market for Bigfoot feet, to create your own prints, to trick your family and friends. People still even dress up in ape costumes and ghillie suits in order to perpetrate the legend. As Bigfoot has become better known and a phenomenon in popular culture, sightings have spread throughout North America. In addition to the Pacific Northwest, the Great Lakes region and the southeastern United States have had many reports of Bigfoot sightings. The debate over the legitimacy of Bigfoot sightings reached a peak in the 1970s, and Bigfoot has been regarded as the first widely popularized example of pseudoscience in American culture. This is an interview I found on YouTube. It was an interview with Bob Gimlin. This is an interview I found on YouTube. It was an interview with Bob Gimlin. He was in the 1967 Patterson and Gimlin film. Here we go.
That particular day, of course, we came around a bend in the creek there where there was a big downfall tree with a root system out. And this creature stood right alongside the creek. And I say stood because I was a little ways behind Roger with my horse. I was leading the pack horse. And apparently when Roger first saw her, and this is what Roger said because I didn't see it, he said that this creature was bending down by the creek. When I saw it, it was standing straight up. And so as Roger got off his horse the best he could with his camera and run across the creek and started filming. And then he wanted to relocate to get a little bit better view where he could see it better, and he asked me if I'd ride across the creek and cover him, which meant ride across the creek, and in the event the thing came back, that's what I took it. So that's when I rode across the creek, and I knew if it come back, I couldn't take a shot at it on the horse, so I got off, I never raised the rifle to my shoulder. I just got off and stood there and watched it walk away. And so that's when you see this famous turn like that and look back, and that's when it looked back at me.
Alright, so moving on to some sightings and evidence. First off, I read many places that both Bigfoot believers and non-believers agree that many reported sightings are hoaxes or misidentified animals. But Jane Goodall, who's very well known for her ape research, and she's lived among the apes and everything, says that she is sure they exist, and in a 2012 article for the Huffington Post, she said, "I'm fascinated and would actually love them to exist," adding, "Of course, it's strange that there has never been a single authentic hide or hair of the Bigfoot, but I've read all the accounts." So she believes they're out there, but obviously, there's nothing tangible yet. And then I got some of these sightings from Animal Planet. On June 22nd, 2009, at around 6:30 p.m., a 19-year-old college student was driving on a curvy back road near Rhinebeck, New York, on the way to a rehearsal at a nearby performing arts center, according to the BFRO report. As he swerved and missed an object on the road, a shopping bag containing, oddly, an open cereal box and a small log, he glanced in his rearview mirror and saw someone or something darting behind his car, apparently to retrieve the bag. A moment later, the student stopped and turned his car around and got a few-second glimpse at something walking on 2 feet about 50 feet away from him. He described the creature, which he saw from the rear and side profile, as being between 7 and 7.5 feet tall, with black hair and possessing broad, muscular shoulders, with arms that swung in an exaggerated fashion, and palms that faced upwards. The witness recalled that he felt nervous, confused, and excited at the same time during his brief encounter. At about 1:30 in the morning of January 8, 2008, a big rig driver was hauling a load of Idaho potatoes on a U.S. I-15 near the town of Scipio, just outside of St. George, Utah. As he downshifted and headed down an incline, the fog grew increasingly heavy. The driver noticed something by the side of the road with glowing eyes and thought it might be a deer. When he switched on his high beams, he was startled to see a gigantic creature running across the road from left to right in long strides just 20 feet away. He later estimated, based on comparison to his truck and factoring in the distance, that the creature was at least 8 to 10 feet tall and between 600 to 800 pounds in weight. It had black hair and big eyebrows and long, lanky arms that were proportionately longer than a human's. For a moment, it turned its head and stared at the rapidly approaching truck. The driver swerved hard to the middle of the freeway to avoid hitting the creature, which nearly caused the truck to crash. Fortunately, he regained control of the vehicle, but when he managed to roll to a stop 200 or 300 yards away and look back, the mysterious figure was gone. And of course, there's the probably the most infamous sighting, which was the 1967 film, the Patterson Gimlin film, I believe it's called, which they were chasing the creature, and then they get close, like not too terribly close, but like 50 yards away, and the creature looks back. They said he looked back 3 or 4 times, but they only got one of the look backs on camera, because the first 15 seconds of the video or so are very shaky as they're running after the creature. Alright, this interview I did with Trevor Lee. He's a friend of my stepdad's, who I also found out in his free time does Bigfoot hunting. Unfortunately, Alright, this interview I did with Trevor Lee. He's a friend of my stepdad's, who I also found out in his free time does Bigfoot hunting. Unfortunately, I couldn't get an audio interview with him, so I just emailed him back and forth, but I asked him a couple questions like, how he got started in it, and he said he's been interested in Bigfoot since that 1967 film. He saw it when he was, I don't know, he was fairly young when he saw it. But he said that made him interested in Bigfoot, and then when he found out that, people went out here and did it, that they were, he wanted to join in, and eventually he got involved with it. And then I asked him, because from what I heard, most of it happens in, the Pacific Northwest, so I asked him if he thought there actually could be Bigfoot out here, and he said he said there's a few places, particularly near the Ouachita Mountains, and he also said that he thinks that there's a lot more to the world than what we realize is there, so he's very open to the possibility. He said he's never found anything concrete, but he has found, he's seen prints and stuff, and though he hasn't actually found one, he's pretty sure he's not too far from finding one eventually. Alright, now me personally, I don't think Bigfoot exists, but I'm willing to the idea that he does, if we could find it, or, find one or whatever, because there are tribes out there and countries that, we still haven't found, and this is 2017, so, maybe they're not in America, but maybe we could find a Bigfoot somewhere, because I did read that there have been Bigfoot sightings on every continent except for Antarctica, so maybe somewhere out there one day we'll find a Bigfoot. What do you think?
I think you got to keep an open mind about it. You just never know, because we're still finding new species every day, and it's definitely possible that it could be out there. There's a lot of tracks that we've never come across. There's a lot of places we've never been, and sooner or later it'll turn up. But until then, I think I'm just going to keep an open mind about it. Real or fake, I don't know. There's a lot of hoaxes, but there's a lot of sightings too.
Alright, thanks everybody for listening. That's our thoughts on Bigfoot for the week. Come back next week where we'll be talking about one of my favorites, the New Jersey Devil. And don't forget to get your tickets for our live 100th episode. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks, guys.